2,700 tanks and 1,390 aircraft, which ensured an impressive advantage over the Soviet Army, which had 1,250,000 soldiers, 990 tanks and 667 aircraft at its disposal in this sector of the front. On September 26, the German army goes on the offensive, which is developing quite successfully. German tank divisions managed to break through the defenses of the Soviet army and encircle the city of Vyazma on October 6, 1941. Thanks to the rapid breakthrough of the German tank divisions, the Soviet troops near Bryansk were also surrounded. The surrounded Soviet divisions made attempts to break through, which were suppressed by superior enemy forces. On October 12, German troops began an assault on the fortifications of the Moshaysk defense line, the construction of which began on July 16, but was never completed. By October 18, German troops managed to overcome the Moshaysk defense line, capturing Moshaysk and Maloyaroslavets, after which they continued to move towards Moscow. Also on October 14, the 3rd German Panzer Group established control over the city of Kalinin, planning to continue the offensive to bypass Moscow from the north, but the fierce resistance of the Red Army did not allow this plan to be realized. On October 19, heavy rains began, which made dirt roads practically unsuitable for the movement of vehicles. Thus, the rain stopped the advance of the German divisions, but the Soviet army also experienced great difficulties in pulling reinforcements to Moscow. A relative lull formed at the front, which lasted until October 23, when the German army continued its offensive, attacking Tula. The Soviet army hastily strengthened the defense of the city using the detachments of the Bryansk front, which managed to break out of the encirclement. On October 29, German divisions, having reached the outskirts of Tula, attacked the city. Fierce fighting for Tula continued until November 2. As a result of the stubborn resistance of the Red Army and local militias, German troops were driven back from the city. By November 1, 1941, the German army had temporarily stopped the offensive in order to bring up reserves and accumulate enough ammunition to continue the attack. The Red Army also took advantage of the temporary respite, which hastily strengthened the defenses and brought up reserves. On November 7, a parade was held in Moscow dedicated to the next anniversary of the revolution, during which soldiers went directly from Red Square to the front, which made it possible to raise the morale of the Soviet army. By November 13, thanks to the frost, the German army managed to restore supply lines, which allowed it to continue the offensive. According to the plan, the German command attack on Moscow was to be carried out simultaneously from 2 directions. In the north, German divisions were to attack in the direction of the city of Klin, and in the south, German troops were to bypass the fortified area built in the vicinity of Tula, surround it and continue the offensive towards Kolomna. According to the plan, the German armies advancing from the north and south were supposed to meet in the Noginsk region and thereby close the encirclement around Moscow. The offensive of the German troops resumed on November 14. The 3rd Panzer Army advancing in the north encountered fierce resistance from the Soviet troops, but at the cost of huge losses, it still managed to take the city of Klin on November 23. Continuing the offensive of the German army, on November 24, they managed to take Solnechnogorsk, and on November 27, German troops occupied Krasnaya Polyana, which was only 29 kilometers from the Kremlin. The German divisions advancing in the northern direction could not develop their success, because due to the fierce resistance of the Red Army, their forces were exhausted and in some regiments there were no more than 200 soldiers capable of continuing combat operations. In turn, the Red Army discharged water from the Istra and Ivankovsky reservoirs, which did not allow the enemy to continue the offensive in this direction in the near future. Meanwhile, in the southern direction, the advancing German divisions were able to reach the outskirts of the city of Kashira by November 26, but the counterattack carried out by the Red Army forced them to hastily retreat to their original positions. For the German command, it became obvious that they would not be able to surround Moscow with the available forces. Therefore, on December 1, the German army launched a frontal attack on Moscow. During the offensive, the German divisions encountered fierce resistance from the Red Army in the narrow Fominsk region, due to which the attack quickly bogged down. At this time, the Soviet command launched a counterattack with the forces of the 20th and the 1st Shock armies, as a result of which the German troops were driven back to their original positions. Since the German army suffered serious losses in attempts to encircle Moscow, it had to temporarily refuse